the sort of primary idea we have is of being somehow separated from the whole of reality. So we imagine we exist as an independent creature, like a wave imagining it's somehow separate from the sea. And then so we're going to go find the sea. We're searching as humans to feel at home, right? That's an instinct we have. This isn't home, therefore I'm going to go find it. Okay, cool. I'm going to do all these practices and inquiries, and I'm going to find home. All there is home. Home is reality. It's the reality of home. We are the expression of some ocean of existence, of the totality. And where is there separation? Look and see if you can find separation anywhere. Conceptually, we can conceive of separate objects, but experientially, we don't actually experience separation. We experience, and experience doesn't have boundaries. Explore the field of experience. We can discover the nature of this, in a sense, and the way in which it doesn't collapse into definitions, the way in which it is not actually divided. We can discover that by looking at our experience and see if the ideas have an empirical basis in experience. There's a kind of relaxing of the search for something else, the search for an answer, the search for the solution to the apparent problem. The real equanimity is in the discovery that there's only equanimity. The wave-like movements of the mind are being moved by the ocean of reality, the ocean of existence that is moving all waves. You know, everything is that. Everything is the totality.
You're listening to the Nonduality podcast. Here's part 2 of our conversation with John Astin, presented by Paul Dobson.
Not really anything to do with spirituality, is it? But it's more like a super skeptical, almost scientific exploration of experience, you know, and really seeing what holds up under your absolute scrutiny of your explorations and see what is true. And assuming absolutely nothing. What is absolutely true? And where do I start? Obviously, I start here. I appear, what is actually happening here? There is experiencing. Can I actually say anything else on top of that? If I'm really, really skeptical, I can't actually say anything. There's colours and, you know, sounds and stuff, but those are words for more of this same experiencing, more of the same reality. It's along those kind of lines, isn't it? The exploration of just really being with it utterly, immediately, just pure skepticism almost.
Pure skepticism, yeah. I mean, pure kind of empirical, you know, pure empiricism of like, okay, I teach research methods to my graduate students, and there's a lot of parallels there. You know, the essence of the scientific method is to say, you know, whatever you think is going on here, well, that's cool. But let's actually look and see what's going on here. Science doesn't really care what we think about what's going on here. In the spirit of it, it's like, well, let's look. Like if you think that some drug is going to help, you know, address the issue of the coronavirus, you might have thoughts about it or theories about it or hypotheses about it, but let's actually look and see what happens when this drug meets this virus, for example, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So it's very much the same thing, but in this sense, it's sort of looking and exploring experience and seeing what's there, looking under the microscope, so to speak, and seeing, okay, well, what's actually there? I may have a lot of ideas, like I have an idea that I'm a human being looking at my experience, like that's an idea. Right? It's just there almost like implicitly. It's not like I'm like sitting there conjuring up this idea. It's just there, like this sense of, oh yeah, I'm an individual living in a world. But okay, well, let's investigate. That's based on, what is that based on? Well, somebody told me that that's true, or it's an idea. If I just tune into, like you were saying, what's here, concretely here, is what we could call experience, but that's just a word for something that doesn't have a word.
Yes.
But let's just call it experience. Let's just say what's here, what's presenting itself, what's appearing, and explore the field of experience. Like what what's going on here. And as I say all the time, we can discover that our descriptions don't hold up under scrutiny, because we discover that what we're describing, we can't actually get to the bottom of what it is. So our descriptions don't hold up. Our notions about just absolutely like taken for granted assumptions about time and space. And for example, those are two pretty big assumptions we have. And subjectivity and objectivity, those also don't hold up when we look at experience, because when can we actually look at experience, not in an abstract way, but in an actual way? We can't. We can only look at it in this flash that is, like how long is what we would call now. And so that little investigation of experience, of actuality, reveals that our conventional notions of time are suspect. We can discover the nature of this, in a sense, and the way in which it doesn't collapse into definitions, the way in which it is not actually divided at the level of experience, at least. We can discover that by looking at our experience, by essentially just feeling the presence of experience. Almost like a certain suspension of like assumption. Like, because we have these really strong assumptions, and people will kind of push back. Like, well, wait a minute. You're telling me it's, okay, well, you have all these ideas about what's going on here. And again, just like a scientist, just put them over here for a moment and look and see if the ideas have a basis, have an empirical basis in experience. And the sort of primary idea we have is of being somehow separated from the whole of reality. So we imagine we exist as an independent creature, like a wave imagining it's somehow separate from the sea. And then so we're going to go find the sea. But what we think of as ourselves, what we might even experience as being an individual, we are the expression of some ocean of existence, of the totality. And where is there separation? Well, if you look, and I'm always saying this to people, just look and see. Look and see if you can find separation anywhere between everything and anything else.
Yeah.
In your experience. Conceptually, we can conceive of separate objects, but experientially, we don't actually experience separation. We experience experience, and experience doesn't have boundaries. It doesn't have pieces. Experience shows up as a whole, doesn't it?
Yeah. These ideas sort of destroy themselves as you investigate this. Like in science, we used to think the Earth was flat. Well, some people still do, but that's another thing. But, and then now we've seen that it's spherical. So that's no longer something which most humans will cling to as an idea anymore. And in the same way, this is even more direct, of course, because it's going via our own direct experience.
Right.
Anything we can't find to be true just gets rid of itself. So, and strangely, as a side effect of that, the mind kind of settles down. It's like almost like the mind's been put in kind of like a little baby carrier thing. It's been sort of rocked to sleep.
It's interesting though, because as pleasant as it can be when the mind gets a little more settled, obviously that can feel, particularly when we feel tormented by the mind, which a lot of humans do. We all know what that's like. What's really interesting though is that if you take a moment and you describe it as the mind is busy chattering away and interpreting and twisting itself up in knots, versus a mind that's very quiet and equanimous and still, and in each of those cases, you're describing something that is fundamentally not describable. So even what we call a chattering mind, what is that? Well, because the real quiet, if you want to call it that, the real equanimity is in a sense in the discovery that there's only equanimity.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the chattering mind, we were talking earlier about the idea of there being problems. And when you look at the chattering, if you look at thought, the big sort of boogeyman of spirituality, and you look at thought and you investigate, just as I was saying a moment ago about investigating experience. Okay, so we have this thing called thought, and we think of it as one of the pieces of reality that's separate from sound or touch, or right. And it's a particular problem, thought.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Incredibly subtle phenomena that we can't. So we'll investigate what is thought. So thought is not really thought.
No.
Thought is ungraspable, indefinable, pure presence of reality. And so from that vantage, what is the problem?
Exactly.
What's the problem if the mind's racing 1,000,000 miles an hour? Its fundamental basis is no problem, because there's no definition there. So how could there be a problem?
That's the thing, isn't it? That's why I kind of label it as a side effect, because it's not something we go after or something that we try and make happen, or any kind of goal. It just seems to be, at least in my own experience, somewhat of a side effect. Like that, having that perspective,
right,
and having no problem with a busy mind,
right,
quietens the mind.
It can definitely have that effect.
Yeah,
yeah. It can, because it's like there's a kind of relaxing of, the search for something else, the search for an answer, the search for the solution to the apparent problem, right?
Yes.
So, but the mind is sort of constructed to both define problems into existence and then create solutions to those problems it's defined into existence.
Even that,
Again, even that. What's doing that? Are you doing that, or is the wave-like movements of the mind are being moved by the ocean that is moving all waves? So the ocean of reality, the ocean of existence is. So that's the real discovery of no problem, is that, everything is that. Everything is the totality. We might prefer certain versions of it over others. Right? We might like certain tastes more than other tastes.
Yes.
But all tastes are the one taste of reality. Single taste of everything, which is, of course, beyond characterization. So you can't really call it a taste. It's in a sense transcends all tastes, but includes all tastes simultaneously.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
It is. It is cool, isn't it?
Who came up with this amazing coolness anyway?
Yeah, I'd love to know.
It always stops me in my tracks. That's why I say it a lot, but it's like, there's something here. What's the fueling the appearance, the display, the vast display of the field of our experience.
Yeah.
Down to all of it. I mean, every little subtle thought, every little subtle sensation, every flash of memory, every flavor of what's happening, every quality, every texture, all of this just arising out of what? I mean, there's no explanation for that. What kind of explanation could there be?
Well, it's tempting, isn't it? And you go, well, it's kind of like the ultimate VR. But where is VR appearing other than in this? And so right. VR is an idea in this. This is the original thing. Like we're comparing it to things that are appearing inside of this. So it's like, well, where does this come from? Not the VR, not the comparison to. That's what we do, isn't it? We kind of find things inside of what's going on and go, well, it's sort of like a simulation, or sort of like a computer game, or maybe it's run by aliens or something, and then, but what's running that, and what's running that, and you just keep going back, and eventually you just end up just sort of going, wow, and you're left
with awe,
yeah, awe, basically, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with awe,
Well, awe is it's a beautiful, it is. It's just pure. I mean, why is there what we would call a spectrum of color? A spectrum of light, light appearing as color, as appearing as all this differentiated color. I mean, or even that light. I mean, what is light?
That's a question.
I mean, not the physics of light, but just the reality of light. Like it's, and of course, light's such a powerful metaphor, in all the spiritual traditions. People talk about light. Jesus said, "You are the light of the world." And it's this illuminative quality, everything is illuminated.
Yes. Everything
is illuminated. The darkness, what we would call the darkness, is illuminated. How we know it's darkness. Everything is appearing. There's only appearing. There's no non-appearance. There's only appearance. There is no God because there's only God. I've watched my own, process over these years of it's just sort of the kind of whittling away of the idea that there's something other than God.
Yeah.
So we'll have these kind of quarrels sometimes with reality. Like, wait a minute, this part of it, no, that's not God. It's like this part of the vast ocean of existence, that's not existence. That's not the totality. Yeah, it is, because there's only the totality. So there's no escaping. So we're searching as humans to feel at home, right? That's an instinct we have. But when we think of that in a kind of semantic way, we're immediately like, there's some things that are home and there's other things that aren't at home, which of course is why I'm searching for it. Because I think, right, why are we searching for home? Because we imagine we're not home. This isn't home. Therefore, I'm going to go find it. Okay, cool. I'm going to do all these practices and inquiries and I'm going to find home. It's like all there is home. You are home. All the home is reality. It's the reality of home. The reality that something is, that's home. The fact that it is home. Feel that. The fact that it is home. Not how you're describing it, because sometimes you'll describe it like, this feels anything but being at home. I feel not comfortable in my own skin, you might describe it. One might describe it. I feel like I'm missing something. Well, how is that home? That's home. You feel like you're lacking something? That's what home looks like. In that moment. It's the totality. It's like, why have a word called home if there's only home?
Yes.
Whatever we're describing is this, because there's only this. Every word refers to the totality, actually. Every experience that we describe actually is referring to the totality. You could say in one of the ways that it can appear, but fundamentally it is the totality.
We call this podcast a Nonduality podcast, but that's kind of not far off because it's actually sort of self-deconstructing as well. It's not two, but it's not really saying anything. But I mean, I for a long time thought it was oneness, I could say this is oneness and somehow I'll glue this all together as oneness and that's all it is. There's only oneness, but that's not. And it's actually taken quite a long time to snap out of that and be like, in more recent times, be like, actually, I have no idea. Like, this is oneness and manyness and beyond manyness and oneness and beyond doing, beyond doer, no doer, all of those definitions. It's not any of them. It's just what it is, and it cannot be defined. It not as an idea, but it literally just can't be defined. There's no way I can frame this anymore. To start with, there's kind of a resistance there. You really want to grab onto something. It's like we're in free fall and we really want to grab something, even though we're not grabbing anything. Actually, once you get used to the idea of free fall, it's fine. It's fun. It starts ever opening up into itself.
Well, the thing is that there's not like a person free falling through something else.
Yeah.
Because what we think of as the person is the free fall. So we use these words to try to capture a little of the flavor of it. And free fall captures a certain flavor that's distinct from the flavor we're familiar with, which is there's a landing ground, there's a thing I can grasp hold of, and And so it kind of pulls a rug out from under that conventional reality sort of notion. So it's useful, right? But ultimately it's wrong too. That's how open-ended it is. There's no closed loops. There's no tie it up in a little bow and here it is.
Yes.
There's no, I love the term, I use it a lot these days, of the shapeshifter, because it's just a shapeshifter. Just when you think you figured out what its shape is.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, there it is. I found it. Because that's what the imagining that it's the definable is. There's the shape. I can see it. It's holding still long enough for me to define it as the shape.
It's the ultimate shapeshifter, isn't it?
It's the ultimate shapeshifter, and its dynamism is so radical that, in a sense, it never really assumes a definitive, definable, clear-cut shape. And there it is. It's like, not if you look with a certain kind of care, you'll see that no, it's not. Our perceptions of this don't freeze. I mean, you can feel it. Feel how dynamic your perceiving is. It's like it's not holding still.
It's like infinitely elusive to itself, yet infinitely at home in itself at the same time, and try and make sense of that. Those two things are both true, but also beyond those, and so it's
exactly.
It's incredible.